Today is Thursday, January 4th, 2024, and the Riverhead Town Board is gathered here for our work session. As we always start out, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Alec Lewis, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Alec. Okay, we have 5 matters on today for work session. We're going to discuss with the Water District matters surrounding the status update on the above-ground storage water tank in Wading River. We have matters surrounding an update on the Town Square Amphitheater and Children's Adaptive Playground. We have matters surrounding the First Street parking garage. We have code revision matters surrounding possible amendment to Chapter 289 regulating the towing of vehicles from privately owned, publicly accessed parking lots. And we have code revision matters surrounding a possible amendment to Chapter 301, Article 50, Article LIIC, cannabis, will be done by Councilman Rothwell and Assistant Attorney Prudente. So let's get started. We'll call the first one up. We could have Mr. Mancini and Councilor Prudente.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm going to just jump right in, and the town board will recall we did authorizing resolutions and public interest orders, authorizing the transfer of property between the Riverhead Water District and the Highway Department, public interest order authorizing the tank, fully identifying the method and means of funding, and the intention to sell the excess water supply, first come, first served basis, to projects and developments.
All right, I guess I'll take it from here. Here's our drawings that are going to be in the contract. But this project, there were 2 major things we had to fix for the water system in that Wading River area is our leanest area in the system, in which the early morning irrigation demands hit us the hardest and really drops the existing tank we have over near the golf course more than it should. And in addition to that, in the same pressure zone where those homes reside is where all the industrial development in Riverhead could potentially land. So we had to solve this potential fire protection issue. So this tank, as far as its function, will resolve both those issues. It's similar to a tank we have on the east end that really helps us, because remember, our demand is a very narrow window of time for a small part of the year. So the other alternative would be to develop all of these wells that we would only use for a very small amount of time. So these ground storage tanks have been a tool utilized throughout Suffolk County by all types of water suppliers to really deal with what I would call the peak demand, mitigating peak demand.
So Frank, if they ever wanted to view the tank that we currently have, that's located
Tuttle Lane
Tuttle
in
Lane.
Jamesport. Right. And this will be nearly identical. It will be 500,000 gallons larger, but it'll look nearly identical. In fact, for me, a tank higher in elevation would function better, but we're going to bury this tank at least 6 feet in the ground to make it more aesthetically pleasing, and it won't be any higher than 40 feet in any one location, because there's quite a bit of elevation change on this site. I don't know, can you guys scroll through that PDF to, yeah, so this is basic elevation. Next one. This is us potentially, when we were early siting of the tank. Go to the next one. And the final one is the best one to probably sit on. One more, okay. So the laser pointer doesn't work great, but you can see in the lower right-hand side of this parcel that we made this land deal with Highway to acquire is the tank. Now, this project, Anne Marie and myself have been working on it for 2 years. I know we wanted to get this done as soon as possible, but we're doing so many different things that we've never done before, and it was incredibly complicated. Not only the acquisition of land, where I was able to trade an asset that the Riverhead Water District owned that wasn't benefiting the district, which would be the town garage, to acquire this at no cost, but it was of value to my ratepayers. So we need to capture that cost and the total cost of this project, because we're going to sell that value back to the big developers that need the capacity of the tank. So all costs associated with not only building this tank, siting this tank, but also getting it to function with the existing water system that we have, we're trying to capture as accurately as possible so that we get a true cost of it and we can pass that on to the folks who need it. We'll be utilizing $2 million of the American Rescue Fund to build the cement tank. We should have these specs ready within 2 weeks, and I've got a bid and award schedule that looks like we'll be awarding this tank on either March 6th or March 19th if we follow the schedule I've got right now. The construction, we'll see who wins it. We've got a number of options. We're looking to build a cement tank. We also have an alternative design for a glass line metal tank that Bob is familiar with, if this cost is just too much. But I think the financial end of it was incredibly complicated and outside of the normal financial management of the water district. And it was really Anne Marie working with bond counsel to figure out how could we sell this back by the gallon to the developers who need it. And this is a good example of why the map and plans are so valuable and sometimes take a lot of time. Because this is the document that defines all of that. And potentially, if anyone would ever litigate us or something, would be what we hang our hat on. It's very complicated in the way we're doing this. So we learned during this process that if we were to bond an asset like this, a bond can only be given to something that benefits all the ratepayers because it's a public asset. But if we did that, we wouldn't be able to sell it to a developer because it can only ask a developer to pay for what they actually need to support their project. So we had a conflict there, and it took a long time to figure out how we were going to do this. And she basically worked with bond counsel to resolve that, in that we're going to take a chunk out of my fund balance and build this, the remainder of this asset, and almost immediately, with the first project being HK Ventures, sell a portion of this back to recoup that cost. So the total amount we're capable of outlaying the remainder of the money, but it may be that we recoup some of the money before we've even incurred the cost at this point. So,
Frank, you mentioned early on that this was the option as opposed to several small wells.
yeah,
Several small wells probably would be a lot more expensive. I know wells are expensive to put
they're
in.
expensive,
And then you've got location and everything.
yeah, the
else.
permitting process of a well in Riverhead is difficult. We're having, the DEC is very slow, and I'm doing my best to resolve all of our issues with the DEC, but they don't work on our time schedule. So that could potentially delay this for years. We are working on new well sites too at the same time. So we've got a number of big projects happening right now with the water district, and probably a dozen different map and plans in the works at any one time. So I think this is a good opportunity for people to understand how large in scale the water district is. And every time you guys approve a capital budget for the water district, only about 4 or 5 of them have been to build something for the water district. Every other one of those is to make the water district bigger by supporting another development.
Right.
So every board meeting, we get a little bit bigger,
Frank, without the height on the well, how do you compensate
That's a great question.
for pressure?
So, in my world, the easiest thing is an elevated storage tank because gravity does the work.
Yep.
Once you get the water up in the tank, gravity does the rest. Unfortunately, they're incredibly expensive to build and maintain. So a 2.5 million gallon ground water tank, elevated tank, would be probably in the $20 million range and cost us millions to maintain every few decades. So the cost-effective solution is this ground storage tank where we boost it with pumps. That's that little square box to the left of the big circle. And we'll have 3 different pumps in there because we're going to have to supply a little bit of water sometimes and a massive amount of water other times. So that's how we do it with
So it's
booster
pressurized?
pumps. It's booster. We fill the tank with existing system pressure, and we have to regulate that flow because if we move water too fast in the water system, we cause rust. And to get it out of the system, we pump it with large pumps we call can boosters, which are deep well turbine pumps in these big, that square building there actually has a huge underground component to it, where the pipes attached to the tank lead into these big, like clear wells, we call them. The tank sits in there. That's how we boost it into the system with electrical power. So it's a little bit more expensive to operate with time because an elevated tank, gravity would do that work. In this case, every gallon of water we move mechanically using power. And this would require a backup generator because, say, a hurricane happens and people use electricity. We never shut down, and every one of our sites has backup generator power. So it's a large operation, it's a large project for us, and I think it's going to work out really good for us, and I think the way we structured it over the last 2 years is really innovative, even as far as paying it back. The goal here is to not only build this thing, but years from now have this asset that the Riverhead ratepayer didn't even pay for. Only the people who needed it paid for it, and the part that we needed, we paid for with the American Rescue Fund.
What about the residents of Radiant River in the initial startup of this project? Are we gonna have like, iron problems, rust in water and things like that initially for the initial flows?
That's a good question. When we really start testing this tank, it's not impossible that would happen. So I'll have a flushing crew available, just like if you live on Middle Road and Northville Turnpike, you may have experienced 1 or 2 rust events in the last year or two because we're doing massive work to that location, and we have done things like that. So I bring my outside crew in, and we're prepared to flush. But that is a great question, and it's not impossible that something like that would happen the first couple of days we operate it. Even in the design, we give ourselves so many options on how this thing's going to be configured, and the tank in Wading River is also going to be modified that we have now, because if we don't modify that tank, we could potentially overflow it and have problems filling this tank. They essentially have to work together. So it just occurred to me the last couple of weeks. So I had a meeting yesterday with H2M, and we captured all of the work that Plant 9 will need to ensure that this tank will work correctly in the system. Something as big as this added to the water system is going to change the way it works completely. Right now, we move water from the east of Riverhead west into Riverhead to try and satisfy this demand in the morning. I anticipate after this tank is done that we're going to have all the water we need, because we have wells in Riverhead, on the west side of Riverhead, that we have to shut off. As the system demand drops and the system starts to fill, water's non-compressible, so you get these high pressure conditions within the system on the west side of Riverhead. People know that they live there. They could have as much as 120 pounds of pressure in the main, say around Molosky's, on the recovery on a big summer day. This tank is going to be like where we can put that water. Now we would have to shut the wells off. We'll continue to run those wells, and we'll fill this tank up on that second half of the day to prepare for the next morning. And that'll leave all the water we have on the eastern side of Riverhead there. We will no longer have to move water from what we call Plant 10 this side. So it's really going to change the way our water system functions. And when we design it, that's a lot of the work and thinking that I have to do. We rely on our consulting engineers to put together our packages and the real design of it, but nobody operates the Riverhead water system except for us. So say like Mark Conklin, my predecessor, has been involved in the planning of this. My assistant superintendent, John Flynn, some of my employees, because we all get together and we think, how is this going to work? Nobody knows how it's going to work until we actually put it on, but let's give ourselves all the options possible so we know this is going to work correctly for us.
Does this impact future development for EPCAL in any way? Does it enhance anything?
Yeah, it does. EPCAL resides in the high zone, so this would add that level of water availability and fire protection to anything that's in the high zone, and technically anything in the low zone, because it's easier for us to drop water from the high zone to the low zone. We don't have to pump it. We use things called hydraulic valves to do that. So even if we had a big demand in the low zone, this tank could potentially dump water into the low zone, where for me to move water from the low zone to the high zone, we have a couple of booster stations that do that, but I got to mechanically boost the water up to the high zone. It costs money. Any other questions?
I'm going to ask a silly question, but I did go to the event that Bob had gone to, and they did speak about these tanks that have to be repainted after a certain period of time. And they mentioned, I'm sorry, I'll speak louder, and they mentioned that there is a new process where Bob was mentioning about that they get glazed over, was it, Bob?
It's glass lined. I can tell you about it. It's Aquastar.
Yeah.
Can you do that on a tank that's going to be buried to a certain extent as opposed to raised? Because it seemed like while it was an initial expense, it seemed like it saved a great deal of money over time. I just don't know if you could do that with a tank that's submerged.
You can't fuse. They're fused glass line tanks. You have to construct it from the beginning to be that way. You can't take an existing metal tank and line it with glass. So that's called the Aquastar product. We have it as an alternate in this contract, and it's just simply a different way to build a tank. This is going to be cement, and it's going to be painted if you want, as any color you want. I estimate every couple of decades we'll spend maybe a couple $100,000 to maintain it, as opposed to a few million to maintain a metal tank. An Aquastor tank requires a different type of maintenance that requires the seals to be changed, and the big ones on Long Island are not common right now, because there are a lot of questions and a little bit of different risks. Say somebody, like, this sounds crazy, but shoots at it or damages it in some way, you have to take that panel off the tank and replace it. That's a massive project where, that sounds crazy, but that's happened in my career, that people damage your asset, either shoot it or run into it or do something bad to it. So if they were to damage the glass lining, there's no way to really repair that. You gotta now take that tank out of service and take chunks of it out and repair it. It's not impossible that we would end up with a glass line tank if the cost for this is just too much for us to take. But my experience has proven, and Long Island has proven, that these cement ground storage tanks are the most cost effective to design and the easiest to maintain, in that there's very little way to damage them. I would expect this asset to be functioning for the water district at a minimum of 50 years and probably closer to 100 years, where those other tanks would require replacement sooner than that.
Okay, thank you. The other benefit of this project is, when we negotiated the deal back and forth with the highway department, the highway superintendent agreed to provide labor related to the initial aspects of construction.
Yes,
And
grading and drainage work, which
Right.
will come, which is a cost that we will pass on, but a cost that we won't actually outlay because of the agreement that we were able to negotiate with Mike.
So essentially, the water district is gonna pay the town via highway department $100,000 for that work. But like Frank said, that cost is gonna be passed along to the purchasers.
Right.
In exchange, the highway superintendent agreed that quote chargeback, for lack of a better word, would be utilized for the improved highway building that he desires to build on the property.
Just, we're doing a big circle of the taxpayer money, but it's all staying in the circle.
Yeah, it's the best usage of the money.
Right. And it's protective of the Riverhead Water District ratepayers.
I'm thankful for Mike for working with us. We're gonna share this yard that he had. He'll be on the left side, we'll be on the right side. We'll share a gate. I have to fence mine in separately because water assets have to be protected a little bit more. But Mike really worked with us well, and it helped us tremendously.
Good. Frank, in an unrelated question, could we get a quick update on the paint job on Route 58?
Yeah, so I was just there yesterday. You'll see the shrouds moving up and down. They have what's called a recycler on site, which is the outside of the tank is coated with some kind of plastic coating that they did decades ago. It's very hard to get off. So the rest of the tank we blast with a different type of media. We're using steel shot now because it rips through that really well. So we were going to start today, but we've got a little sketchy weather coming. So we agreed that Monday you're going to see the shroud moving, and we're going to start blasting the outside of the tank. We estimate about 10 days. You'll see the tank will be shrouded, and then when you see it unshrouded, it'll be dark gray, which will be its zinc coating, which is the first coating that gets applied to the metal surface. From that point on, we'll be able to demobile the blasting equipment, which is a massive amount of equipment on that site, and then we'll just concentrate on painting the rest of the tank. The internals are blasted and coated with zinc already. Once you've got that done, you got a lot of flexibility with that project, because when you blast the tank, you have to coat it with the zinc immediately, because you'll get what we call flashing, where you get some rust buildup on the metal surface, and that,
Oxidize right away.
So this part is hard. This part's much harder to manage. And remember, all this has to be done in the winter. It has to be online by the spring.
Right.
So the reconfiguring the systems we do is hard, where this is going to be a big construction project for us, but it's not going to require the system manipulation like the 58 tank is requiring and Plant 5. So we've got two massive projects occurring right now that require us to rearrange the whole water system to get them to come offline and enable us to work on them.
Very good. Anybody have any questions?
Very impressive.
His knowledge is amazing.
Yeah.
How many gallons is the tank on Route 58 holding?
It's $750,000 gallons, the 58 tank.
And that's a
Mine would-
gravity tank, obviously.
Yeah, it's we
because
call
of the height.
elevated storage. I wish it, we want the biggest tanks we can. That's a big tank, but in my world, it's not that big.
Yeah, because I think the cost to paint that's what, 3 million?
We estimated 3.5. We had a great price, so we're in it for 2.6 million at the moment.
That was good news.
Because
Yeah.
I look at that being a couple $100,000, and I just look at the difference.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
point I wanted to make.
And that's,
The long-term maintenance costs for a cement tank have proven to be a fraction of any other tank in the business.
Makes
That's why they're so popular. But there's only two companies in the country who build them. So that's the other variable is we got to get these two companies aggressively bidding our project and schedule them correctly. So we do want to get this on the street as soon as possible.
And once we get this underway, you can anticipate shortly, hopefully, we're chasing well sites.
Yes.
yeah,
very-
We are,
good.
actively.
Yeah, it's a huge story. I always thank you guys for the work we do with the USGS. We've extended our relationship with them for years. Riverhead's underground water is incredibly complicated. There's salt water on the east end, and it's how I work with the DEC. I basically use really strong science to go back and forth and have obtained 2 well permits for the water district that we had previously not been able to obtain with the real hard science that we do with the USGS.
The guy I know up in Vermont, Don, the hydrologist, said knows he's coming down to Riverhead to do some work this spring, so.
Yes, the state recently decided they're going to invest in 3 large wells in Riverhead, and it's going to probably cost 1.5 to 2 million. Remember, we paid for 2. This is a huge thing for Riverhead, and it's how we'll understand the water resources of Riverhead probably more than any other section in Long Island. So it really is important for us, and we're actually thankful to the agricultural community that before we put these wells in, we do what's called a time domain resistivity study on the surface, where we can see the saltwater interface. So I just reached out to Cornell, and we're looking for, Frank Bayrod always helped us tremendously, but you can't do those surveys unless there's nothing buried under the ground. So the agricultural land in Riverhead has enabled us to look for the interface where and there's been pushback from the state because it looks like there's so much work done in Riverhead, and it's because we paid for a lot of it. Most importantly, they leave that out. But a lot of the rest of Suffolk and Nassau doesn't have that open space to allow
Right.
for this cutting edge technology to be used. So we really are on the cutting edge of what I would call like large scale water resource management and hydrogeology because of what we do with the USGS, and you guys have been so supportive of that.
Well, listen, I know you can talk water all day. But unfortunately, we have other people to bring up here. Thank you very much.
Thank
Chuck.
you guys.
Appreciate it.
We wouldn't do it
Very
without your
informative
support.
and
Frank's a regular
keep up
here.
the great work.
Good work on the bonding stuff.
Yeah, that was a
Anne
big
Marie.
win for us at the
That's good.
Okay, next up we have matters surrounding an update on the Town Square Amphitheater and Children's Adaptive Playground, and that will be Dawn Thomas, Frank Messina, and Anne Marie Prudente.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Morning.
Happy New Year again.
Happy New
Officially,
Year.
now that we're all together. So you were sent by email, and I think Chip has a little thing. So when we last left off, we had received 2 $200,000 grants for design, preliminary design for the adaptive children's playground, which is it's fully accessible for all ages, and the amphitheater, the riverfront.
A little louder.
Oh, sorry, the riverfront amphitheater. And so those 2 grants were from a program called BOA, Brownfield Opportunity Area Study. There were not DRI grants, but they work together with DRI. And so in order to hire a consultant, we needed to do an RFP, which you will recall we did in the fall. And we got a very robust response, which we were very excited about, from a ton of great consultants. And so we had a very hard job to ferret through those applications And we narrowed down, I think we had about 6 applicants for each project. Frank's book here just has the entire RFP process. If you ever want to see a masterpiece of organization, just go to Frank's office. He's everything, like, thank goodness. And so we had our planning staff, my office, and some of you. We then narrowed it down. We did interviews. We interviewed 3. We narrowed each project down to 3 consultants we interviewed. And we ultimately agreed to select Lee Skolnick's firm for the amphitheater and a company called LVF. And so I have given those proposals to you all to look at. LVF is working with Cameron Engineering, and then if you see some of the work that they've done, and Barry Long also, who's our consultant for all our downtown projects, participated in the review of all of these. And LVF, I think the best page to look at is probably, they did a lot of work on a giant $400 million park that has flooding issues in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that, just like, let's see, they didn't put page numbers on it, but like this page with the birds, this is the kind of work that they do. And it is really amazing. It really integrates the community into the project. So it's not just a playground for, anywhere. It's a playground that's going to be designed for Riverhead and incorporate elements from our environment and community in it. And so I think what we can expect from LVF is an amazing playground. It will also manage the water issues that we have down the river, as you will recall. The project, the playground project and the amphitheater project both provide flood protection to Main Street and the town square. So you can see they've dealt with in this Tulsa, Oklahoma project a flooding issue in a park area. It's a riverfront park also, and so they really they came out on top. I mean, when I tell you, I think it was one of the hardest decisions we had to make.
It really was.
There was really great people, really great firms that applied. But this really felt like us, and what we really liked about them was they have with them a very two things stood out with this firm. One was they understood and recognized that we already did a ton of public engagement. So we had many public meetings, we had Zoom meetings, we had personal meetings where we engaged the community in what we should have in the playground. So rather than start that process over again, they're going to propose ideas and let the community react. And we felt like that was we're sort of, wanting to keep our momentum going rather than starting all over with public engagement. Gee, what do you want? Here's what we think we recognize you want from what we've done already. Move forward from there. And then the other part was their focus on making sure that what we propose on paper, which can be amazing, can actually get done. Because we don't want to propose things that A, don't fit into the budget, and B, just never get done. So the playground has almost $1 million in funding for construction. So we just received another $500,000 from the New York State Parks this year. We have another almost $300 from DRI and another $150 private contribution. But the great thing about these 2 projects are that they're very ripe for philanthropic contributions. So people could sponsor elements of the playground, and have naming rights. And so we feel like we want to design it for that purpose and then move from there. But and then I'll just quickly go over the amphitheater. So for similar reasons, everyone who participated agreed that Lee Skolnick, whose firm is located in Sag Harbor, was the better pick. We had, again, very stiff competition, but the thing that stood out for us in this were 2 things. One was his experience, and we've seen some of his work, but also that they brought a part of this project includes a market study so that we right size the amphitheater, so we don't build too big, too small, wrong ideas. And so the market study here is part of the grant requirement, and it's going to be completed by a company called HRNA, who's amazing, and their consultant came. That HRNA was represented at the interview, and they basically were very clear that they understood the nuances of this type of facility very well, and we felt very confident that what they come up with will be right-sized for us. And then Indigo River is their other consultant, their flood, and this person was off the hook. The firm knows and understands flood mitigation and designing things to incorporate flood mitigation. So we really felt confident in the end that those were the two picks. And so in your packet next week, you'll have draft agreements to sign these guys up and start the process. And one of the things we emphasized in the interviews was we want to move quick because that's what we've been doing all the while. Even though it feels quiet maybe in the public realm, we've been cranking along on these projects. So, and a lot of technical work. As you can see, this is just one aspect of the technical work that's been happening. There's other grants that we're managing and working with and getting contracts and project descriptions with and stuff. And so, so what we think based on this is that at the end of this year, and I think this is not an irrational thought, that we'll be breaking ground on these projects at the end of 24, if not sooner, as fast as we can get these done. These will get us bid documents, so that we can, the next step will be to bid and we do have construction money. The other thing that's really wonderful about this is that at the same time, these projects are converging with the Petroselli master developer transaction and the construction of the town square. So it can all, which is really amazing because the hard part of figuring all this out is, you know, Main Street's going to be kind of imploded for a while when we start this, and we understand that. But having it all done at the same time is better than not. And so we're putting together not only these people. Barry Long's been overseeing everything for us, and in addition, Joe Petroselli's design team has been. Now we put everybody together, and they're all working at the same time. So we're hoping that Barry can continue to oversee that entire network of consultants. We have one more consultant to hire for the town square proper. I'm going to suggest that we have LVF do that upper town square piece, which is where it connects to Main Street, and then there's another piece we have grant money for what we call complete streets improvement. So if you've been down to West Hampton lately, you know what they did down there. That's what complete streets gives you, and so we have some funding for that. And then we're ramping up for our next application for the RAISE grant, which is due at the end of February. That's $25 million. About half of that will go to the parking garage plan, and the other half would go to the network of complete streets that will connect the railroad station as the transit-oriented development to downtown through with bike paths, walking, landscaping, lighting, signage, make it all so when you get off at the train and you see our new TOD project, it will look welcoming and you'll know where to go. Or if you park anywhere downtown, you'll be able to see, oh, here's where downtown is, here's where the aquarium is. You're gonna feel lit, safe, the streets will feel occupied and cared for, and so that's the overall project, but we're, just shoving along as we've been.
Do we have a generalized site plan, just in terms of what space, how much area that we're allocating for the amphitheater, what we're allocating for the playground, and how it all fits together?
That will result from this process. So with the town board's input and these consultants and the public, you can shake out what exactly you want to put where and why and how it works together. It all's got to work together to flood protect Main Street, and then also for the funding piece, because while we do have significant funding for the playground, we have only the design fund for the amphitheater. So that, again, lends itself to philanthropic contributions and sponsorships and things that we've discussed over time. But right now I have no public, state grant funding for that. And that isn't something that we'll be incorporating into the RAISE grant because it doesn't fit with what that's for. That's a transportation grant, so.
So to Ken's point, I would like to see, before these guys go way down, start down this path, that we look at the options, because I know, and I think it's important for the public to understand when we say town square versus what are we calling the space where the playground and the splash pad is going to be? What's that called?
We were referring to that as the lower terrace or lower town square.
Okay, so the lower town square, right? And I can't agree more we're talking about, I'd like to know, we keep calling it an amphitheater, but, I'm gonna call it a stage. But I would like to get in early with who's ever doing that, because, I look at three things going on. The Vale, which holds about 200 seats. You got the Suffolk Theater, which will not compete with the Vale. And then you've got this lower town square, which could hold 5,000 people, right? And if there's a stage between East End Arts, like at the edge of East End Arts, facing west, now East End Arts can program on their property, and then we can program, and we're talking about, and again, when you're programming for 3, 4, 5,000 people, that does not compete with Suffolk Theater because they can't hold that amount, and it doesn't compete with the Vale.
That's why the key component is the market study, the feasibility study.
That's
part of the proposal.
I understand. What I'm saying is, we're the CDA board. As the CDA board, and I know we can only meet 2 at a time, but I think it would be good to hear from everybody and what they think. How these guys do the market study. They need to know the parameters.
I think Bob and I will agree on this if I'm understanding him correctly. It's like, just in terms of a generalized site plan towards how much space we're allocating for each one, I just want to make sure that the town square is not a giant playground, that it is a gathering area, restaurants,
And if you
buses,
look
and
at-
where in
if
the
you-
placement of things.
If you look at this,
And that the
you'll
whole
see that.
amphitheater is not the entire coast.
To be clear,
Waterfront.
a lot of times when we talk about the town square, we're really talking about the upper deck, which is going to be open for the restaurant seating and everything. So Dawn and I now call it the upper deck. The lower deck is the adaptive playground, the amphitheater. That's lower deck. The upper deck is going to mirror really the lots of 117 and 121 that we took down. That upper deck is going to be everything you just described and envisioned.
I like Bob's ideas early on about the splash pad and other things like that to have in it. I just want to see
It's gonna
that
be
the whole
part of this
project is not a
process.
giant playground.
This is going to be part of the process, and that's why it's important that they all work together, and that's why it's important to have a guy like Barry sort of helping oversee that interaction between the two. But if you look at what they're talking about here, and this is just very preliminary, they haven't even, but you can see, this is where the playground, this is that other portion that's directly below the hotel. We're thinking that, then they did a giant ice rink that's all like synthetic, and so they could roll it up and take it out. But in the winter, how nice would it be to have a playground here, have an ice rink here, but you have to input with them, and that's what this is all about. And the feasibility in terms of the market study will tell you exactly how many people you can expect to come and what that involves. And so that's what they do, and that's why we're really excited to get them. So that's the first step, the market, because in order to know what you're going to build, you want to know what, if 5,000 people is the number that you want to get downtown, how often do you want that to happen? Who's going to manage it? All of those things will become questions that you'll have to answer, or maybe the answer will be, oh, it really is only going to support more of a band shell that is programmed more like weekly or and then has more community input. I don't know the answer. That's why we're doing this, because you want to right size it, because if you remember what Phil Myrick said, you don't want to have an amphitheater that sits there empty. So we want to make sure that it's right sized. That's the key. But you all will have any input and all input you want in this process, because this is for you to do. I think these firms are incredibly well qualified, and I think whatever you think needs to be part of it will be considered. And then once you get to that point, then you're going to do plans. Then those preliminary designs which are being done here will become real plans and be bid.
So do we have an outline time frame towards
So,
when the study will be done?
Yeah.
And plans
So
and what's-
I don't remember offhand, but we're going to push them as quick as possible. It's about a 6-month process, all in all, for the market study, for the whole design. The market study is shorter.
Can we get regular meetings with these folks? you know, because I mean, one of my things is when you say amphitheater, it's got that step down stuff. And it's not just, you know.
I don't
when-
know if it has any step down stuff.
Okay.
That was just the concept.
I understood.
I don't know anything what it's gonna, I have
Okay.
no preconceived notion. I don't know how this works.
Good.
That's why we hire professionals.
The amphitheater is going to be somewhere around 17 weeks.
So quick.
That was what the proposal said. It was something around the same for the playground.
So Bob, I know you like timelines on deliverables. So if the town board decides today we should move forward with the resolution and the professional services agreement, I'll make sure, and I'm gonna work with Frank, Dawn and I talked about it, that I put in
Deadlines.
those deadlines.
Yeah, they have to be
Okay.
in there so that, you know, nothing goes beyond, and
Definitely.
also I would like, who's ever doing these studies, I'm not so sure we need, you know, 4 consultants on this when you've got 3 people who know what they're, you know, that this is their wheelhouse. And I, you know, I know you want Barry to kind of organize them all, it sounds like, but I would like some data on splash pads, only because just recently I spoke to somebody who, and you're welcome to come up and speak, Frank, where a playground near Smith's Point was in disarray, blah, blah, blah. They put in a splash pad and the place is packed constantly. You don't even bother with the
I
playground.
mean, that's always been part of our
Yeah,
design
no,
discussion,
okay.
so it's definitely a part of
Okay,
it.
great.
And we're hoping that that can alternate with ice maybe for the winter.
The only thing about the ice that I'm concerned about is I don't want to do anything that's going to compete with the hockey rink. You know, that's my only concern, you know, with that. But
The timeline on playground was around 34 weeks. They had said. That's where the proposal had come in,
A
but
little bit longer, yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
study plus presentation of plans.
That's done,
Yep.
start to
Permits,
finish, yeah, permits and everything.
So in week 35, construction begins is what
That's what we're hoping.
they
That's
said
what
they
we're
might be
working
able
on.
to do it a little bit faster, but that's what their proposal had stated, so.
So one other quick question. I remember early on, right, there was a wall up, you know, Heidi Bear Way. So on the north side, you know, we were gonna fill in and raise that lower level. So are we not doing that anymore?
That's still happening.
Yeah.
That
It
has
is.
to happen because,
Yeah,
so
'cause
the whole town square is basically 3 levels. The riverfront
Right.
part, which is gonna have to eventually come up to, that could be the last piece of the project. And all of the components can work independently depending on when we get funding, so they're not, one has to go first, second, or third, they can go whenever we get the funding. So part of the raise grant is gonna be to raise that boardwalk on the riverfront. The bulkhead's gotta come up 2 feet and the boardwalk, and the plan is to make that pedestrianized street so there's no curbing, it's very accessible and it's multi-purpose. So what you're saying is, you know, you can really put a lot of people down there and it's not gonna be, you know, you can use it for parking sometimes, you can use it for, kiosks, you could use it for a fair, you could
Use tents.
whatever it is,
Okay.
it becomes very multi-purpose. Then the next level up is the lower terrace, which is the playground and the amphitheater. And then the next level is the town square. So the town square flat level will be pretty much even with Main Street. It's probably around 11 feet elevation. If you look at what the town square looks like now, you see the slope. That's the problem that we have to solve. And so this way to solve it is to step it. So the town square will be flat up to the back of the hotel, and then there'll be steps and ramps down to the terrace level, which would be the splash pad, the skating, the ice rink, or the amphitheater. And then the next level down will be the riverfront linear park.
And there'll be a wall there that.
It won't be a wall, it could be a lot of different things, but I'm anticipating that, like, if you look at the pictures of that LVF did in, Kansas City, a lot of rock, you know, rather than concrete wall and actual, you know, normal looking retention structures, it could be a composition of natural elements that bring that level up. It's gonna be filled, obviously, so that the height is right there, and then it can be flooded. So the purpose of the lower square and the riverfront is that we know that at some point another Sandy comes, those areas we're not gonna be able to build them up high enough to keep them from being flooded, but they will be floodable, and that's what these people do specifically. And then when the water recedes, and in fact in the Kansas City you can see the way they designed the park is it has a whole different look when it's flooded and you can still access it.
Right.
And so that's what we're hoping to achieve. And then the same with the amphitheater, it could be flooded, so whatever mechanics, you know, electrical, all that has to be designed to be correct, to be wet on occasion. The town square in our lifetimes will never be wet.
We only need
other
to be
than
a
for
foot
rain.
higher than Southampton and all the water goes that way.
Yeah, so but the complete streets piece also mitigates a lot of the storm water, because that's the whole other component. So we have the water that comes up from the river, and then a lot, because it's a low point, the water that converges from all of the streets in downtown. So those complete streets will manage some of that stormwater and put it into drainage swales and biogardens and things like that to sort of keep it from getting into that low spot as quickly as it normally does.
Yeah, because you do have a hydraulic gradient
Yeah.
all the way down, even from behind,
Yeah.
you know, Woolworths, right?
Well, even where you look at that parking lot in the back to Main Street is higher.
Right.
So you know, if you and it's if you stand in that alleyway at the Suffolk Theater, you can see that ramp up. It's not flat.
So on the north side of Heidi Bear Way, if this is Heidi Bear Way, there's not going to be a wall
No.
here. So the question,
It'll be
it'll be up a little bit.
no, it's going to be 4 foot higher than Heidi Bear Way. Where that playground is, the level is going to be about 4 foot higher
That's
than
right.
Heidi Bear Way. It may not be a wall per se. It may be other types of structures that
Natural appearance.
lift the grade. Right, exactly.
But they
We'll
had
see what they
si-
come up with.
they had 64 acres to deal with. I'm curious how many of those acres, you know, absorb the water. That's one. The other thing you mentioned that I'm curious about is the bulkhead coming up 2 feet. So we're going to raise the bulkhead that's currently on the river 2 feet.
That's what the Army Corps has suggested.
Okay.
What about handicap accessibility? How does that
So,
factor in?
It factors in hugely, and one of the great things about the top to bottom project is from the parking garage, everything down to the riverfront itself will be completely accessible, and this playground is designed specifically to be a draw for kids of any ability.
Fantastic,
And so
fantastic.
we're removing all the barriers to mobility. We're going to make it, that's one of the main features of all of this, is that you can go from one place to another, whether you're, you know, in a wheelchair, you have a cane, a walker, or, you know, whatever it is that you need to use to get to places.
You know, Ms. Thomas, I just wanted to mention, one of the renderings you had showed me in terms of going down by the water had like steps
Yes.
as a way to create that barrier that we're talking about
Yeah.
that can flood up, and had steps down to the water. The rendering had people in kayaks and canoes
Yep.
that can just be accessible right there at the waterfront.
And
I thought that
one
was
of the
a great
other
way to do
DRI
it.
projects that was a winner is the boathouse. And
Yes.
so East End Rowing, we're doing the grant, but East End Rowing will be building a boathouse, and that is also being designed to be fully accessible. So it's one of the focus points that we've really kind of had throughout, that we want downtown Riverhead to be a place for everybody, regardless of anything, money, no money, you know, mobility, no mobility, whatever it is.
Take your kayak down to
yeah,
the water,
yep,
just step down and
yeah.
go out.
Yep, so those are the things that we're cranking along on.
This is very exciting, I have
It
to say,
is.
it really
It's very
is. It's
exciting.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
thinking
feeding off
back
of
to
your
a couple of years
enthusiasm.
ago
I
and
can
how we
feel it.
were
Oh, yeah, we're
It's
already
talking
exciting.
about this.
I don't think we could be more enthused if we talk about it again. But and to see it actually happen, you know, like those are the things that we've been waiting for. But the assistance of great designers, people who understand how these things work, do them at other places, has been critical. I can't say enough for UDA and their input. I don't think we would be, I mean, the first, and not to like prolong our discussion this morning, but the first interaction we had with them was on the pattern book, and I won't get into too much detail, but I was completely precluded from participating in any of that by someone who was on the town board at that time. But I had an opportunity to talk to Barry Long, and I said, listen, we were thinking about this idea. We don't have anybody to draw the idea. Could you help us? And he was like, sure. The next thing you know, pictures of the town square, and a picture, and I can show you those original, I saved them all, are little sketches with black magic markers and location maps and stuff. And he drew the dream. And in order for us to take it to the next level, then you're able to show it to somebody and say, this is a really good idea. Can you help us
Right.
pay for that? And that's what got the town board to say, okay, you know what? it makes really good sense to buy these buildings and knock them down, even though people will be like, oh my gosh, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it is, but it's an investment in us. And that's the difference, you know, really can see how this turns in, how not only does it transform Riverhead as a tourism destination, but it's for the Riverhead residents too. It changes the way we look at our town. We get to see it the way we know it can be. So that is what gives us excitement.
I do think during this process, we should consider a PR firm to kind of just constantly keep the general public apprised on what's going on, what's happening, how their tax dollars are being spent, and to see it, because you are, I've said it many times over, your office, you guys are doing a ton of work, and it's just the public doesn't see that, like, and
we don't
know
have
how
the
many
time to
hours
do
you're
that,
spending
right.
in grant writings, and you guys are phenomenal. But
Thank you.
I wish that on our website, we can have a specific dedicated page or something that says, you know, the town square, and here you go to, it's a
Yes.
PR, and then this is what's coming, this is a time frame, this is what we can do. Let the people know we are actively working. It's not just,
Yeah.
it's not just a Christmas tree. There's
And
so
that-
much more to come within the town square.
I've
That
actually-
might benefit, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've actually been working with Bill Rothar and my staff about a position for somebody to come in and be a PR person for us, handle our social media, and even eventually maybe be in charge of scheduling the events and things that are down there. So
Yeah, great.
we're just stealing pennies, looking for pennies here, there, and everywhere else to try to make this happen. But it's something that's been needed even long before
Yeah.
this. There's so many good things that go on in this town, and all the negativity gets the headlines, and all the good stuff gets the back page. So it's
Well,
time
these-
for us to promote ourselves.
These two design processes will have public engagement, so the public will be invited to participate. They had some really good ideas about how to get kids involved in the design ideas and what they said. And then one of the things that they talked about a lot was how when you have the children and families participating in what goes in the park, and then they go to the park and they see it and they're like, oh, I had something to say and I had some impact in my world, and that's a really good lesson for kids. Makes them become public servants like you all. So that's what we need in the future. So, and then I guess we could just sort of segue right into the
Yeah,
garage,
we'll go
right? So
right
that's
into
the
the-
next.
So
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to confirm that the town board is good, award resolution and professional services agreement.
That's an
Yes.
eye for me.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. So the
Thank
next.
you for all the work that you've done.
Well,
You
it's
need to get
it
'em
ain't
down
just me.
there.
It's
No,
our,
all
you know,
of
it
you.
it is.
Not 34, 30 weeks.
Yeah, I can't say enough about the team that we have
28.
here. It really is just
It shows.
phenomenal. It is just like a dream come true. Truthfully, I don't know. I can't. Sometimes I wonder why I get paid for this job. It's so much fun.
Wait, there's our money for the PR.
So, but the next piece, in order to make all of this happen on the down low by the river, is to get the parking out of that area and put it on the north side, which I know you have been following closely. And so, since we last spoke, we received the $2 million grant from the Suffolk County for Jump Smart. That's going to pay for all the soft costs for the parking garage. So we've already done ground testing. So they've done ground penetrating radar. They've done soil borings. They've done, and we hired a company called Level G who's done a feasibility on how many spaces we ought to have, and where it ought to be, and how it should function, and how it should be built based on. And our consultant NDC, which now has another name.
I know, I
They
forgot
changed
what
their
it
name,
is.
but NDC is still NDC. They have a new name. It's like something about America
Yeah.
Builds or something. So they also do parking garages all over the country, and one of the things that they are good at, and where we've finally gotten to, is where they've done feasibility on what we expect revenue-wise from the garage, and how we can pay for the garage, because of course this is the big question, right? Got to build it. How are you going to pay for it? So. Two sources of funding that we are anticipating is one from the sale of our 2-acre Court Street parcel that will become the TOD. Currently, that number is around $7 million. That could give or take a little depending on how things go with that transaction. And then we have the $2 million. So we have, right now, we'll just use the $9 million. So we've been applying for raise funding for, will be our fifth application. Took us 5 years to get DRI, so it's not unusual to continue to apply for something even though you get hit over the head. And then we realize when we don't get it, weren't quite ready for it. So now, when we apply, not only do we'll have preliminary design on the garage, which I think Chip has the parking garage slides. I think Devin sent them. So we have conceptual designs, and so you can see the location will be in the back bump out right there. That's the location of the garage. It's part of the reason we think that's a really good location is you can see that it recreates First Street, right? First Street used to be a street, and where that garage is shown, there used to be houses, and that was actually a road that went through from East Avenue to Roanoke. So the objective would be to really make that look like a street again. So it would have sidewalks, lighting, signage, and you'll feel like you walk out of the garage onto a street, and it'll tell you exactly where you need to go from there. And there you can see some of the crosswalks, and those crosswalks and the entrances to the garage are designed to connect with the two alleyways that go to Main Street. So you can see how that works there. The cost of the garage based on estimates, so the number of stalls that's suggested is 504 based on a bunch of different parking studies that we've done and the public engagement that this Level G company just did. All of the stakeholders downtown participated, and so at 504 the cost is expected to be around $23 million. So if you take the 9 off the 23, there's our gap. So that gap can get filled in a multitude of ways, but one way is through a grant. So if we get, last year we applied for 10, I think we're gonna up that number a little bit. But the good news about the garage is it's a revenue generating source, so it can pay for a bond. So then the objective obviously is to have no cost to the taxpayers, right? So if,
When you say revenue generated source, meaning what? Like,
well,
are you renting spaces out? Are you collecting money for
both,
parking?
both. So it will be, so we've in consultation with the Petroselli group, because they don't have parking, the hotel will require them to have valet, so they will have to reserve a certain number of spaces at a cost. And then the use of the garage on a day-to-day basis will have a cost, and on the weekends would be a different cost. But then the way the garages work now is all sort of electronic. So if you're an employee downtown and your boss has reserved spaces, or you're gonna fob in, you'll know how many spaces you have in the garage and what's left. The thing that's going to be a challenge for some people to think about is, in order to charge for the garage, we are going to have to charge for parking elsewhere downtown, but we don't have to charge a ton. But in order for us to, and I think we're worth it, honestly, $1 an hour or something like that. But those meters, if you've seen them now, they're not like the old parking meters, and you don't need to chalk tires or anything like that. You just put your card in, and you can, exactly, you can add to it or whatever from your phone. It's all done by credit card. So, but if I didn't distribute, and I will distribute to you if we didn't get any grant money and we only had $9 million. So the way these garages work is it gets bonded, and then if the revenue doesn't cover the bond, just like CPF, the town would make up the difference. So the objective is to have enough revenue toward it so that the bond is covered by the revenue. But the projections that they've given us, and Bill sat and Jeanette sat in on a meeting with us all last Friday morning, and it looks pretty good that there may be a gap in the first couple of years, a small gap, but after that, even if we don't get another grant, the garage will pay for itself. So these are good things to know, and it was comforting to me because this was a big question I've had for a while.
Right.
So I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
No?
Yeah.
And we're still working on these numbers. So,
yeah.
and we're gonna
Bill and
continue to
Jeanette have
work with
questions, yeah.
Bill and Jeanette on it.
I don't see in the drawings anyway, but I thought there was a consideration that if we did like a partnership with a private entity towards renting instead of just parking right on the top, to do like some type of facilities or something where we could lease the top, for viewing and catered events and things like that, and make it more of a draw where we can.
I'm sure you can do that. I think you would need to add.
I mean, you're going to be up high enough. You have a
Yeah.
beautiful view out. out there.
So the one thing that we are proposing to put in it to start with is a police substation. That's important to remember. And then we elected not to do like a public-private partnership with commercial because we don't want to draw away from Main Street. And there's other opportunities for more garages in downtown should they be required. And you can actually see one of them potentially on this photo. So if you look at this one on the far left side, that's the parking lot by Summerwind. That is a really prime next public-private partnership location because you could redevelop that parking lot and recreate the area behind those buildings to actually be a pathway so that it looks nice and it's all organized and it's lit and it's sidewalked. You can't see the river from the back of those buildings anyway, so putting something there isn't going to block any river view, but it's going to enhance the back of the buildings where a lot of people enter because it's hard to enter those Dark Horse and Tweeds from Main Street. It's hard to park nearby, usually park in the back. So, but that could be a project that includes a garage. So you could trade off, you could say, okay, we're gonna, because it is urban renewal, and this is just very theoretical, obviously, but you could say, okay, you can have this parking lot, you are going to build a garage and something else on it, and now it's gonna be another riverfront project to draw people down to the river. And also provide, really more proximate parking to the square, the playground, and to those businesses on that west end of Main Street, East Main Street.
That I would love to see it. So,
I have sent this to you already, but I will resend it.
Could you?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is with Level G, did they do a spreadsheet on how they came up with their 504 stalls?
Yes.
Can
I
you
have,
I haven't.
Yeah.
When did you send it to me?
when it was done a while back, yeah.
If you don't
I'll
mind,
send
send
it
it to
again,
me
yep.
again. Because I know there was one, and this is done predicated on now, and looking at the people that are gonna be doing the Upper Town Square, Lower Town Square, right? That's gonna obviously draw more people, and I think Level G needs to, come back and look at that, because, and to Ken's point, and having been engaged with the parking garage probably about 7 years ago, right? It's very easy to rent about 4,000 square feet on the top, which could help, and maybe we wouldn't have that 2-year gap, right, to pay, number one. Number two, I'm not real supportive of sprinkling garages around Riverhead as opposed to taking this one and make it 5 stories, because the 5th story is where you're getting, the top story is where you're getting all the ground parking. All the infrastructure that goes in a parking garage, you're getting, pieces of what was on the ground. So, and then I look at the market, and I'm glad to see some of the developers that are providing parking. But I would just like to see Level G come back when these other consultants are done and say, well, 504 isn't enough. And I know at that meeting we had several months ago, there was a study done years ago, I don't remember the year, but they said we need 1,000 spaces. So I just for my own edification,
Yeah.
need to.
And I think we also, but I understand the idea of not sprinkling garages around. From a planning point of view, I'd have to look at more information to see if I agree with one spot only. But the important factor is the cost. Because you go up another floor, you're going to add. So it's basically 100 spaces a floor, and each space is 40,000. So you're going to add exponentially to that cost.
Totally agree.
And so we're just trying to keep it within
Understood, but
the lanes here.
If you're programming, I'm looking at an ideal world, right? And to one of the greatest things Barry ever said was, don't do all this stuff if you're not going to program it, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, okay, and he was absolutely right, because you're just going to have another Grangeville Park. So
It's really nice.
No, wait.
What do you mean?
It's becoming more
Nicer.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about, what it has been before we put reflections in there.
Yes.
Started to
Yes.
to do that is what I'm talking about. We all know what that is. But if our goal in doing the town square, the lower town square, is to attract people, they're going to need parking. So, and those are the people that are going to pay on the weekends that extra fee for parking, and so that spreadsheet is important
I'll
to
send
me.
it to you again. Yep.
And also how they came up with
The Level G
504
numbers, yep.
stalls, because I look at, we're going market rate, you know, understood, and those people, are gonna want a place to, I'm not paying market rate. When I paid market rate in the city, I was parking in my building.
And this garage is planned to be modular, so it's a concrete, you know, precast concrete modular, and it will have a skin on it. The skin is what will cost, you know, how good you want, or we can make that skin look with the budget. That's gonna be the question, but obviously we would like it to look as good as that looks. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Like I'm in school.
No, I
I
know.
wanted to just mention one other point. Again, from a rendering that you had showed me previously, with a hotel on the right and that second parking lot that we're speaking about on the left, is there a way, in that rendering, it had all kinds of tables and shops on either side by the hotel? Could they do the parking lot where it's like a mixed use, where part of it might be storefront for cafes and such? Can they do something like that where, to Bob's point, it doesn't look quite like a garage? Like part of it might have retail
Yeah.
on the bottom, and that way it would have all of those shops on that side, but other parts of it could be for parking stalls.
So we did consider doing retail on the first level to sort of offset that, but we're afraid to draw away from Main Street. We want people to be
If
on
that
Main
was
Street.
built on Main Street, like we've seen pictures of ones in Florida.
Yeah.
It's all retail on the first floor and then it goes up, and when you're
Right.
sitting back, exactly, you don't wanna draw away from the town square and the area that you want people to come visit.
No, that's what I'm talking
On
about.
the new one,
I'm
yes,
talking
we
about
could
it.
absolutely
And
do that.
The
Well, if
second
you-
one, that's what, would be
Yes.
on the other side of the hotel.
Yes,
That
that's the
would-
whole idea.
That
Maybe it
means
would
in the
be,
area,
That's
maybe
what
it
I'm
will be
saying.
wrapped with another hotel that has restaurants
That's
or
what I'm
things like
saying.
that.
Can
Yeah,
we do
definitely,
that?
yes,
Get a
it could
parking
be done
garage
that
like
way.
that?
Yeah. We wouldn't build it, but we would work with a private
Right.
developer to partner to develop the property that you own.
Bob, when you refer to doing something on the upper level, are you're referring to losing parking on that top
Absolutely,
level?
yeah.
And using it for structure, for
Absolutely.
building, for
Yeah.
enclosed, whatever?
And I'll tell you why, because if you look at, if you took a year, if all those, let's just, I'll be hypothetical, let's say it's 4,000 square feet, right? That's X amount of spaces. That 4,000 square feet is easily worth $1 million a year in rental. And it's gonna be a lot more than, that we're gonna get from the parking spaces. In addition, going up 5 stories is, then you're gonna have the view of the bay. 4 stories, you're not gonna have that. That's extremely attractive to a good operator who goes, wow, I want this view. This is, a water view is very close to a 10 when it comes to people doing events.
But do we wanna compete with our local business owners?
Yeah,
As
and
a-
I- you're in the
And you're
same
all gonna have to be
situation, too.
mindful, this garage, right behind it, is a residential neighborhood. You have single-family homes.
You can soundproof it if
Right.
that's your concern.
But do you
Well,
wanna be in the,
not soundproof, you can
event
just
business?
shadow
That's
them.
something that you have
I
to
don't
think
wanna be, but somebody else may want
Yeah,
to.
but
All I'm
Bob, this
saying,
is a
I'm
government
looking-
project.
I'm just looking at options.
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
said earlier, right? There's nothing definitive, you know, I'm looking to pay this thing back. That's number one. It will help when I see the stalls,
Yeah.
what we're looking to get.
We'll show you, I think you'll be comfortable that
Can't get government bonding.
one way or the other. The other thing
What?
too is if we do get grant money, the garage cannot be for profit.
Okay,
So-
well that,
So that,
That's
these
good
are
to
the
know.
things that we don't have. Oh, thank you.
When you mix proprietary with governmental, government entity really does not engage in proprietary acts. The minute you do that,
got it.
then we lose the ability for particular bond rates that a
Yeah.
government entity enjoys.
That's good
The
information.
bond rates are low if it's just government, not for profit. If it becomes,
But isn't charging for parking for profit?
it's
No.
gonna, no, because the cost of maintenance of that garage is going to
Yep.
be big. So you're gonna wanna put all of that into maintenance and operations costs, and if something breaks or you need to hire people. And all the
That's
numbers that
right.
NDC has done has employees, what they would charge.
You're allowed to rent parking spaces for an hour or 2 hours or for the day, but you can't rent.
Turn a profit. We may not turn a profit. And that's the significance of the work they're doing for us, is they're doing the calculations, knowing the confines, that this is not a profitable business. We may not turn a profit.
Well, it needs some,
It needs to pay for itself. That's the minimum that we want
Including
it to do.
maintenance.
Right. So,
Okay.
and just to, you know, not to say that we're not gonna get the grant, because I think we're in a very good position to get the grant this year. We got, deemed a project of merit, which is very
good.
high level in that process, which is very competitive. It's national. How many applications? 600 applications.
Yeah.
These are from cities with building bridges and all kinds of things. We're competing against them. We're doing all the work in-house, and we smashed it last year, and so we didn't get it. We're hoping that this is our year if we get it this year. The thing we thought about, which is interesting, is if we didn't get it this year, although we would arguably be deemed a project of merit, and under the rules this year, we would automatically be applied. Next year, we wouldn't even have to reapply, but it could hold us up. That's my only concern. I want to make sure. So, in either case, it looks to me pretty good that we're gonna not have to ask anybody to come out of pocket for this garage, and it is really the linchpin to the downtown work. We cannot eliminate all that parking on the
absolutely.
riverfront
That's
without doing the
where it would
garage. So
never happen
it's
without the
absolutely correct. So we know we have to do it. We're pleasantly surprised, I think, by the potential for it to cover itself, and we'll be even more pleasantly surprised if we get another $10 million towards it, because then it's an absolute no cost. It'll definitely be fine at that point. We're working on trying to figure out exactly what we should ask for the grant, because we want to ask for as little as possible so we can put money on other things. But
I'm being more risk averse.
right,
than
but that's
doing
okay.
this
But
on
this
the
is how
process.
this is always how it works, because we're the yin and the yang, and we always get it done. So I'm not worried about it. So anyway,
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Sorry to be a pain in the butt, but this is a good opportunity. Chip, can you move?
I have it. I have it.
Oh,
Where do
you
wanna
have
go?
it. Can
Which
you
way do
just
we
move
go?
it back to where you have the town square and the hotel?
Narrow. Okay, here. No, all right, hold on. Oh wait, we go down. There you go. We're spazzing out
It's
right
good.
now. It's
It's
not a
alright.
PowerPoint, so
No,
it's
it's not, that's right.
There it is. Oh,
oh, that one.
yeah, come back. Yeah, I just want to. And now I need go towards East End Arts. Okay, so I have a question. Right there's great. The hotel is bumped out further than the Science Center, which is
This is a very old rendering.
okay.
Very old rendering.
Okay.
So it's not. This is all conceptual. Now we're actually doing real design.
Okay, so all right, so in the real design, I think it would be really good in terms of activating that lower town square, that those two buildings end at the same point. And if we have to, you know, if that's gonna be a restaurant on that end, we consider allowing that square footage up on the roof. And the reason why I say that is because you've got, you know, to have a bump out and not have a clear rectangle, you know, to what we're looking to do. So it would be good to look at that.
I just
Is that
think
what you're
that's the
working on
optimum
this?
location for a skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do that, it comes out temporary, rolls up, pulls out, stored, put out when you want. I don't think it's gonna compete with Peconic hockey. I mean, if it's just for like little
I don't think so.
rinky dink skating.
Downtown's gonna need it. They're
Just
gonna
like in
want it.
Greenport, like that little rink, I don't know if it's, we can ask them and see what they think, but I think it would just be absolutely amazing to be able to go down there in the winter and you know,
Well, and that's another reason to
enjoy
me,
the outdoors
a
in
lot
a
of
season
flat.
that we know, yeah, well,
because
that's,
I mean that could be.
and you
I
can see
get
here,
concerned
like
about
if you look
competing.
here, this is, let me see if I can get the cursor going, so like here's the walkway, this all becomes pedestrian street, so there's no curbs. This is like a 3 or 4 foot step up to this level, and here's the ramping and step ups to the other level, so that's how that works. So you get the flood mitigation, but you know, these still are built to be, you know, floatable, as is this, you know, depending on how it ultimately gets designed, which we don't know because we haven't started that final process.
So that protrusion in the hotel is just in a preliminary.
This is
design.
super
Okay,
old.
that's very
This
old.
is from the activation plan, so it's
And
already
East End Arts
few
is
years.
gonna be elevated also.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna
That's
have
the
to
other
do
thing.
that.
The
They're in a
entire
bathtub.
front of East End Arts has to come up, and all the buildings have to be relocated forward, so they're protected from the floods too. Otherwise, that becomes a bathtub, because this building on here, this is Munchnick's building on the far end of that, and so you don't want a big bathtub in here because that just will not be a good thing.
I would really like to see the rooftop utilized.
Yeah.
I mean, the view from up there, that's the thing right now. You go to
it's-
other
Yeah.
big towns and everything is, you know, a
Yes.
rooftop restaurant or, you know, just just
100%
outdoor
agree.
seating.
So there's rules with that on residential buildings, but on commercial buildings, they can be there.
But on hotels, they have. the
Correct.
things
Oh, no,
that-
you
so
can, it's a
that's what
commercial
just-
building,
yeah.
it's different than a residential building, but, yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. I mean, we have this giant asset, we've all been looking at it for our whole lives, and,
You've got one chance to do it right.
exactly, and that's why I'm so, like, I think about all the things that had happened in the past, and when we didn't get grants, or we did get grants, and I'm just happy that it all worked out the way it did, because this, I think, is the right
And
plan.
I appreciate, I think this kind of meeting, I think more of these on this project should,
Yeah.
moving
Well,
forward, we
we're
should
gonna-
have as we progress, be,
Yep, as often as you need us to come, we can do that.
Do you have any projected time when we get?
I
this grant?
think I mean, in consultation with LVF and Skolnick, we think, and even Barry Long, we think the end of the year you could break ground on these. We have funding.
She was asking on the raise
On the
grant.
raised grant.
Oh,
When is
okay,
it
yeah, yeah,
due
so
and
it's
when do
due
they
February
award?
28th, it's awarded on June 28th. It's already seared in my brain.
Oh, February 28th would be, what was that date?
Due date.
February 28th is the due date. It'll be submitted before that, cause it's right around when my first grandchild is gonna be born, so.
That's great.
Yeah. Yep. So I want to be ready for that. We're already working on it, and the building, business, BCA,
BFJ.
yeah, not BFJ,
Yeah.
the new
we
company. We just changed consultants. The raise grant requires, and we talked about this at the last
Yes,
meeting,
yeah.
the benefit cost analysis. That's a separate document. It's done by an economist. We had it done with one guy who was wonderful, but we decided that someone who had done this exact work before would be a better pick, and so we went ahead and picked that person. It's $25,000, but that is covered by another grant, so it's not costing the taxpayers. So,
Very good.
all right,
Everybody okay?
all right, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
appreciate the update and the info.
Yep.
Right, we are now looking for
thank you.
code revision matters surrounding possible amendment to chapter 289 regulating the towing of vehicles from privately owned, publicly accessed parking lots, i.e. shopping centers. And we will need Eric Howard and Danielle Hurley.
You can do it. I think he's going to the last item first. I think you're switching the order.
I've got it as item 4. The last item
Yeah.
is cannabis.
It's okay.
Oh, you've got a different sheet
Yeah,
than I
sorry.
do.
Want to do cannabis since I'm here? It should go quick.
You want to do cannabis now?
Yep.
Then I'll
Okay,
get that
all right,
next
then
one.
we will do code revision
Take
matters
one,
surrounding
pass it down.
possible amendment to chapter 301
That's the
cannabis,
actual.
Rothwell and Prudente.
So what we want to do first is just to kind of update our new councilwomen. We have a working committee for cannabis, and so they've met a number of times. To rewind back further, Governor Cuomo at the time legalized cannabis. We kind of felt at that time that he put the cart before the horse, and so we did have a split vote, you know, and to opt out on cannabis, but it is permissible in the town of Riverhead now, and there are basically two entities that will continuously talk about it. One is retail, and the other is consumption. They are treated identical, so when we write our town codes, when we talk about like distances and saturation rates, it doesn't matter whether it is a retail shop or a consumption place, the rules apply the same. But the cannabis committee basically had met a number of times to determine what the town side of the legal entities was time, place, and manner. Okay, and so we had put together a nice town code that was very protective of our biggest concerns was keeping the drug-free school zones 1,000 feet away from schools, protecting our town parks, properties, churches, all municipal grounds, daycare centers, obviously the schools. And so we had put distances and applied it all to it. We had created a mapping program initially, and on our first creation of the mapping program, we were under the presumption that we were looking at potentially 60 parcels or so, but we made an error. and so we correct our errors. We made an error that the residential distances from a lot of these places were not applied to it, and so there really weren't. In the end, when we applied the residential distances, which is 1,000 feet from a residence, we didn't have 60 potential parcels available. We cut it down in as little as potentially 4. So that really becomes, it almost gives us the impression that we're like spot zoning and we can regulate time, place, and manner, but we have to do it in a fair and partial manner. If we left I believe that if we left our regulations, our zoning the way it is, it's not fair and partial, and I don't want the state of New York to tell us where we're gonna end up having these facilities. I want us to dictate it and be able to control the narrative throughout the process. What we did to try to, we looked at reducing the residential restrictions from like 1,000 to 800 to 750 to 500. We kept going down, and it really wasn't making any parcels available because the biggest issue is that residential parcels pretty much touch most commercial parcels in the town of Riverhead. So if we go down to 20 feet, if they're touching, connecting, it ends up eliminating most of the parcels. So we came up with this idea of creating corridors, like commercial corridors. We basically start in Wading River, and it goes through, from 25A in Wading River till it joins Route 25, continues from Route 25 to Route 58, through Route 58, and then back on Route 25 till we reach the Southold line. And I'll kind of go over the corridors in just a moment, but by eliminating the residential restrictions on the commercial corridors, it suddenly made about 144 parcels appear in the town of Riverhead. When we say that number, it seems like a big number, but we always must counterbalance by saying we have implemented a saturation rate. The saturation rate gives basically 2,500 feet from the left of you, 2,500 feet to the right of you, where you cannot have an additional consumption shop or retail shop. So therefore, meaning that we're not going to end up having like one shopping center with 3 cannabis places inside it. Once it's going to be based on a first come, first serve. Once they get their zoning, their building permits from the building department, they'll mark it out. They'll basically measure out 2,500 feet to the east, west, whichever direction, and then basically that's going to eliminate anybody else from selecting a facility within the same boundaries of that saturation limit.
So we would not be able to have a retail shop and a consumption shop all in one?
Correct.
Like if you had a seafood market and attached to it was a restaurant where they cooked the seafood that they also sold publicly at the market?
Correct.
That cannot be done?
Correct.
Cannabis, okay.
Yep. And that's under our current town zoning right now as well, so.
And that's under the MRTA
That's,
also.
I thought I read that under that,
Yeah,
yes.
you can't purchase and smoke
Right.
in the same location.
Right.
And you can't even have alcohol and purchase or smoke in the same location.
So what we did is we created commercial corridors, so in the end it comes up to about 144 parcels, but due to the saturation rate of the distances of 2,500, really in commercial corridor 1, we'll just give it as example. I don't know that we have to run through.
Only one in quarter 1.
Yeah, so what happens in corridor 1, it starts at the Brookhaven town line on Route 25A, and basically in terms of a number of parcels available, you will probably have 1 or 2, which would really be like Mays Farm along Route 25A, if they ever decided to change their use. And then you would have like the East Wind Catering Hall shops at East Wind, where they could potentially have one facility in there. But because of the distances of the 2,500, you can't have both. So it's basically whoever gets first. So the reality is when in the entire distance of corridor number 1, you are only going to be permissible to have one location. So there would potentially be only one in Wading River. Then when you come into the commercial corridor number 2, you're only going to have one, again, because of the distance. So as you go through basically Calverton, arriving at Route 58, you're only going to be permissible to have one there. When you get to the commercial corridor 3, now there's a longer distance, and there, mathematically, meaning if you started at the very first parcel in commercial corridor number 3 and then worked your way down every 2,500 feet, put one in, it's never going to line up that way. But mathematically, I think you can end up having potentially 4, maybe mathematically 5, but it's unrealistic that could happen because the reality is it's not going to be the first parcel. It's going to be once somebody selects any location, it's gonna go 2,500 in each direction, which might put you in the middle of a shopping center and so forth. When you go into commercial corridor 4, you have Aquag area, potentially 1, and then in commercial corridor number 5, potentially 1 in Jamesport. This is a balance. This is about saying that we weren't taking these type of facilities, consumption or retails, and putting them all in one spot. Brookhaven basically put everybody in the industrial zone and said to everybody, travel to the industrial zone again. We're trying to do a more balance that it's available throughout the town. It's limited by the saturation rate. Yes, there are 144 parcels, but the reality is when you go through this, I think realistically, you're probably gonna max out somewhere around 6. If you had 1 in each corridor and some on Route 58, I don't really see that you're gonna get 6. That's even if the state gives 6 licenses, Remus, into the town of Riverhead. But the saturation rate, I just remind my fellow council members that that's really what controls the entity. So you're not gonna have 144 cannabis stores because of the saturation.
You're never even gonna have 6, quite honestly.
Yeah,
Because
and I
it's
don't
just-
think so either.
The market's not gonna support it.
Yeah, once 1 or 2 open, then, it becomes very competitive, and then when 3 comes in, it's less competitive, and then the market value, and I think that people realize that it drops then, But, we're staying firm with, 1,000 feet from schools, drug-free school zones, staying away from our churches, daycare centers, public parks, all of our, beaches, municipal buildings and so forth. We kept all those restrictions, so really this proposal ultimately eliminates the residential restrictions along the commercial corridors only, making more sites available from basically east to west of the town, okay?
What about if there's, one of those tobacco stores that's selling the?
Smoke shops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Those fall into the regular retail shops, so they don't affect any distances or.
Can we keep them from them? Like, because I wouldn't want to see a smoke shop and then a cannabis shop in the same shopping center. I don't think that would be beneficial to a particular shopping center.
But it's 2 very
I know.
different
Yeah,
restrictions, because, a smoke shop is just simply retail, but the cannabis is a license,
I know.
entity, specifically. So I don't know that we can do that, but something to look into. Also want to keep in mind that when we say 144 parcels, we have to be realistic that many of these parcels, have current leasing agreements, which means that they're not going to be regularly available unless somebody buys out their lease. Many of these parcels may have outstanding loans, so people have mortgages on the property. So when you have a mortgage that's FDIC backed, the federal government, cannabis is not legalized in the federal government. So if you have a shopping center that was developed that has a current mortgage, you are not going to be permitted to have a cannabis facility in there because it's backed by the federal government, your loans. So those are things that, just because the parcels say that they're permissible, it doesn't mean, we may find out over time that as people go through the town and they start looking at 144 parcels, they may find that there are very few available. But implementing this code, it changes itself as every year goes by because leases expire, and somebody may say, okay, there might be a pizza restaurant in one place, and when the lease expires, the owner may say, I want to open up the cannabis, because there's a high demand for it if there's no shops available. So we just don't know, but I think this is still very restrictive. It protects everything. I think it makes more parcels available, and I think that I'm in tune for the kind of watch and see. If we pass something like this and we all agree on this, it basically, it's kind of a watch and see how many more parcels available, and just kind of monitor it before we, continue to reduce any other restrictions if necessary. But what I may or may not have left out, or questions wise.
I think you explained it really well, and I'll just add to what you said. I mean, if somebody's got a mortgage, but a lot of these shopping centers, the anchor tenant makes a decision, not the landlord. And when these leases are done, they will say, I'm not going to be here if X, Y, and Z are here. You're not allowed to do this. That's one. I just have one question. The corridor idea, fine. An example, right? Let's say a location does fit, but they're shy of 200 feet door to door to a resident, do we have to then follow state law?
No.
No, the commercial card
Local
completely
zoning
eliminates.
trumps.
No, the reason why I asked that, because it's no different than, like, if you wanna open up a liquor store, right? And the church is 200, door to door is 200 feet. Local law doesn't trump that if it's 180 feet.
If the town in that particular zoning districts prohibits, let's say, a bar,
You can't have
You're
a
not
liquor
gonna-
store next to a church, according to SLA. That's my
Right.
question. I'm just asking that
Well,
question.
Chip, can you bring up corridor one? And I'm just might explain some of your, this might answer some
I'm
of the
not sure
questions.
maybe
Bob,
I
but-
understand your question.
But like when we look at commercial corridor one, you see that we have the Wading River School, okay? And so when we go 1,000 feet from the school is essentially behind Phil's restaurant as you start to go down, Wading River Mountain Road. But when you put that 1,000 feet around it, you've eliminated a series of corridors on Route 25A. Not because of now the residential restrictions, but because there's a school. There is a church right there on Dogwood. So that church, you see, comes out and it touches 1, 2, 3, 4 parcels right on, on the south side road. So it's eliminated that. And that's why you see when Chip's got that close up, it really only shows about one parcel right in that area because it's been eliminated by the school restrictions and the church restrictions.
No, I
Is that-
get it. I probably didn't explain it right.
Sorry.
Right, no, and I'm gonna give a hypothetical, okay? Let's say Riverview Lofts and McDermott wanted to, and I know it's not allowed in DC one, but let's say that it was. And somebody applied for a license there, but the church is door to door from there is 180 feet, not 200, which is what the Cannabis Commission is saying it has to be. You're saying to me, because the same reason they cannot have liquor in, because it's 100, because it's within, it's less than 200 feet door to door at Riverview Lofts. Which, if you're saying if somebody got licensed for cannabis, they would be able to do it because local law trumps cannabis law.
Our code, as it presently stands, and as proposed to be amended and presented before you, are more strict and stringent.
That's not answering my question. I'm just,
Who trumps who, town law or state cannabis law? If there's a property that one allows and the other doesn't, and let's say the state allows it, but the town doesn't, does the state win? And vice versa, if the town allows it but the state doesn't?
The town is always gonna advocate its right to zone. In addition, under the MRTA, it specifically stated that the town had the right to implement time, place, and manner restrictions, including saturation. That's what we did. So we, the town,
So then in
would
that, the town
always
would
fight to
trump, right.
uphold
Okay.
its zoning laws.
I-
It's a fight you will always have, and it's always worth having.
I totally get that, but what I'm saying is you can't put a liquor store next to a church. So what I'm saying is if one of these parcels, right, it wouldn't qualify next to a church. What I'm saying is if it's across the street, but it's 180 feet, not 200, which is the New York State rule. Same like SLA. They said it has to be 200 feet door to door. All I'm asking, if there's this guy.
I think we're measuring from parcel to parcel. Are you suggesting then to measure from door to door?
You're giving me an example.
No, Ken, all I'm doing is I'm giving an example. If somebody wants to go here, but it's, let's say 180 feet from a church, door to door, and the Cannabis Commission has said it has to be 200 feet away. In other words, if you just
Yes,
went
we can make the law less stringent.
Correct.
Yes. So it's,
So there's no wiggle room.
yeah, we can't
That's
lessen
correct.
the state law. If the state law sets a distance of 200 feet,
That's
we
all
can't
I'm
go
asking.
150.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That's just,
that's.
just curious. Sorry, I didn't know.
We can make it more restrictive, but we can't make it less restrictive comparative to the state.
So we would really like to move this forward. I don't know.
Now, I will say, if I can, before you make any decision, at our meeting, so, and because our two councilwomen might not have been aware of how the cannabis committee was comprised, it was comprised of a member of all the civic groups were able to attend the meetings to participate. We put our school,
Representatives.
we had representatives from the school district to come. We had the police department, we had CAP, and then
Bid.
we also did yep, chamber. But then we also did is, we also selected certain residents, like, cause there's not a civic group in Aquabog and other areas, so we had like, Jim Flood came and things like that to participate. We tried to make sure that somebody was concerned about every part of the town. And then in addition, to having those, we did allow potential retailers and people within the industry come actively speak, actively participate in this. And this room was filled the other night, and I'm gonna say that everybody in this room from both sides seemed quite pleased at that, maintaining the restrictions from schools and churches and parks, but still granting an opportunity for the businesses to have a place to go. So it was pretty well balanced. I don't think anybody
And it was one of
objected.
many cannabis forums that we've held. And we allow everyone to speak, and there's an actual exchange that goes back and forth the entire night. So if you're a resident and you want to ask a question, you get an answer. And we talk about it on the record, and we've had several of those.
Very productive meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that there are residents that are totally against this. However, we're at a point that it's here to repeat what you said. We do not want the state telling us where these places
We can't
have to
set
go. We want to
restrictions
be
and
able
make
to
it
regulate.
nowhere available in the town and go, oh no, we allow it, but there's no place for
Kinda
you to
did
go.
the first time.
Yeah. But it was done in error.
Unintentionally.
It was done in error.
Unintentionally.
And I made a commitment in the beginning, when we realized the error, I said, well, we'll reconvene, and we did.
And the councilman has created an excellent record in support of all the town's efforts in the drafting, because it's all public record.
The only thing I would say is, I think the 2,500 feet between each one, I would like to see that lessened, only, make that shorter. Just because of, I was here and I thought the meeting was great. You had a lot of good people here, and people that had already gone around and seen that you can't do anything in different places. What do you call it, Eastwind was one of them,
Yeah.
that they already had gone there, and Eastwind is possibly having one. I would just like to see that reduced, because 2,500 feet is 6 1/3, and it's like 7 football fields, between places. And if you got one in each corridor, and I agree with you. First of all, 6 bakeries aren't gonna make it in the town of Riverhead. 6 of most of anything are not gonna make it unless they're gas stations, but, I just think that I would like to see that reduced.
I think we should roll out smaller
I know what you think.
and
but-
see the impact. Why? Because when we ran the numbers, so in corridors 1, 2, 4, and 5, you can only have one. The Route 58 corridor,
That was really
not to
because of the
correct you, but the potential possibility, and by the way, Jason gets really the bulk of the credit for this. I mean, he did most all of the work. But in corridor 3, the Route 58 corridor, there's potential for probably 7. But again, depending on where they locate, the likelihood is probably more like 4 or 5. So when you do the math, and we're a town of only 36,000 residents, and you're providing a real potential for 8 cannabis retailers or consumption sites, that's a lot for 36,000 residents. So I wouldn't, I would caution the town board and roll it out like this first, and then weigh the impacts.
I appreciate your example, we're a town of 36,000 residents, and we have Costco, and we have BJ's, and I mean, come on, I'm not getting the,
Everybody use Costco and BJ's, not everybody smokes marijuana or is gonna
Right.
go to a lounge.
Right.
So it's a lot less, and I agree with you, you're never gonna see 6 here. It
it's
wouldn't
not,
be
it's
supported.
just.
But I also I also would like to just see it's the effects of when a store opens. Like it is not permissible in the town of Southold. So if somebody would open up on Route 58, you are going to be serving those residents of Southold that choose to purchase retail marijuana, or they're gonna come to that area. I also think that, I just wanna see how it affects, like, if there's one store, does it have a major traffic impact? Are there lines? If it's in a shopping center, is it affecting the store owners on either side because there's a line outside, or there's no parking, and there's a lot of environmental impact, so to speak, around the storefront that I think you want to watch and see. But it might be minimal. It might not be. Just like the supervisor said the other day, we were concerned about Columbia Care many years ago, and it's had no impact. But I think you got to watch and see a little bit.
I agree, I think that's why,
Baby steps.
as proposed, I think that's how we should present it up. Let us see how it goes, and if
Right.
if we need to adjust, we can adjust. This is new territory.
Yep.
I've also seen a lot of advertising on social media that you can actually, I guess, get it
Delivered.
online and delivered right to your door. There's a lot of people that
Right.
might participate in that recreation, and they don't want to be seen going to a store.
Correct, absolutely.
I would just
I
say,
order all mine home.
I would just say, I know that there are a lot of medicinal uses people have for this, that besides recreational, I understand all of that. I just get concerned, being from Wading River, the idea of it right on 25A, right up front, I think they better suited if East Wind in that shopping center wanted it, because they have the parking. They have the ability to handle that if there are long lines. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen that in other states, big long lines for the purchase of this. So
Well, they'd have to go through the planning board process.
I'm just concerned, because there are a lot of schools. It isn't just the Wading River School,
but
the high
we
school.
keep
is
the
really-
Wait, no, we're buffering.
I guess I just don't like the idea of it being front and center with, right there on pretty much the main traffic area of Wading River. I just think I don't think it's a good
We have to be balanced throughout the whole town. You can't say, I don't want it in Wading River,
Oh,
because
no.
I live in Wading River, so I want it in Jamesport. You
I
have
don't
to
want it
make
in
it
Jamesport.
balanced.
And you can't
It's
discriminate.
gotta be balanced.
No,
It's
no,
a
I was-
permitted use, you can't discriminate
I
it
wasn't.
and make it only in the backdoor situations.
I was just suggesting that if it had to be in Wading River, I thought the East Wind Shopping Center was a better location for it, not so front and center, right between the high school and the grammar school.
But then you're really doing spot zoning for individual landowners and parcel owners, and not, like,
And
we
then if
shouldn't
you-
go down that road.
You think about it too, because in my mind, I think of marijuana and alcohol as being very similar. And you've got Phil's Restaurant right next to the school. They serve alcohol. Does that have any effect on the children in the school? Absolutely not.
Well, because they can't, well,
It's the same thing, whether it's a beer or whether it's a joint.
well,
And
I
you sell
just
beer right
think-
across the street at the gas station or across the street from the school.
I respectfully just disagree. I think a child cannot go to a person and say, go buy me a drink in Phil's, and they can't walk out the door with it.
No, but can you have somebody
But you
go
can
buy them a
sue-
beer in a gas station?
But they can easily go have somebody buy them the marijuana in a shop.
Same with the
That's-
beer, same with alcohol. Kids get it all the time.
Oh, that's not Phil's.
Denise, I will tell you that one of the gentlemen that was here for the last meeting, said Easton would be great, but he's already gone there and they're not allowing it. My whole thing with this is, and I understand and I totally respect the slow rollout and everything like that. My thing with this is, I don't care if it's, where it is, the more of these places where people can get marijuana that's regulated by the state, so there's no fentanyl in it, is where I'm at. That's all where I'm at, because the fentanyl laws in New York
That's an
State
excellent
are
point.
pathetic, all right?
That's an excellent
And I
point.
know the DA is trying to change them, and I know you must be aware of that.
There's a rally on the 8th, up in
Yeah,
Albany.
8 ounces, which kills 131,000 people, a fingernail worth of fentanyl, and that's why I have no problem, and there's no way 6 of
Well,
cannabis
let's
shops.
see, Bob.
Well, I know
let's
you
see.
say, let's see, but let's see is how, how much time? You already have a bunch of applications.
I'm looking to roll this out immediately. I'm looking for the town board to tell me I can move it forward with the publishing
But
post.
my point is this, okay? You already have a flood of applications. You roll this out. And I think it's great. You roll it out. And if people come back and say, well, there's only 2 places to do it, how quick are you going to make some amendments?
Same as
to
we've
it?
done, we reconvene.
Right.
And we readdress it. But what's available today, even what I was trying to say earlier, is what's available today, without us taking any action, may be very different next year or 5 years from now, just from the expiration of leases that are currently in use by landowners.
If you're the owner of a building and you currently have a tenant, and the tenant has 2 years left, I'm a wannabe marijuana retailer. I can offer you, as owner, an exorbitant rent that you pass along and buy out your existing tenant. Now I get to go in. It's
In a perfect
Or
world.
wait till the lease ends, expires,
Right.
and then the landowner gives it to
So, right.
consumption
And
place.
there was also somebody here that I spoke to that owns 2 strip malls on Route 110. Owns them, okay? And I can tell you, his anchor tenants in their lease, because he wants that anchor tenant, the guaranteed long-term lease. Not gonna happen, even though he supports it. He owns 2 of them on 110. Can't do it. So, I don't, my whole thing is, my thing is about fentanyl. My second thing is, fine, roll this out. I think the 2,500 is too much. Roll it out, but if you find out in a month that you've got one, and the one that we had, the guy doesn't even want to do it, which is up by Tanger, then you're gonna go convene immediately, and
we'll do whatever we, yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to see the 2,500 drop down to 1,500, because it's still,
Well, we got a lot of support, strong support for this as presented to you. Am I right?
Yes. There really was, nobody was objecting.
Yeah.
Everybody at the cannabis forum, everybody thought it was very fair.
people have spoken. That's fine with me.
I mean, we didn't get pushback from the retailers.
No, the worst case scenarios, we revisit it, and if we have to change it, we change it. But I agree. I think how it's set up is appropriate right now. Let's see how it plays out.
Just taking baby steps and monitoring as you go along, as you
Right.
lessen any restrictions.
I apologize for you not explaining that about the distance.
That's all right.
So the next
So-
step,
Even
just so
Devin
the councilwoman, is we would have to put in a
Resolution.
resolution to go
Publish
to publish
this.
for a public hearing.
Yes.
And then we'll
Great.
have all the residents, and we also can base some changes on what the public perception is as well.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, this brings us towards our last item on the work session agenda, and it's matters surrounding possible amendment to Chapter 289, regulating the towing of vehicles from privately owned, publicly accessed parking lots. And Councilor Hurley, if you would come up, please, and
Hello, everybody.
educate us on this.
Okay, so just some background from where this idea started. About 2 months ago, I got some calls from Riverhead Police that there were residents that were returning to their cars that were parked in shopping centers, which are privately owned, publicly accessed. And they were coming out and their cars were gone, so they didn't know where they went. One case, they thought they were stolen. They contacted PD. PD didn't know where they were. Eventually, the people were able to locate what they detailed as small, unclear signage. They finally figured out where their car was, that it got towed. And when they went to go collect their car, they were charged about $600 to get their car back. There was also an opinion article on this topic in the local newspaper entitled Overly Aggressive Towing Policy, which detailed some of these concerns as well. So based on those phone calls and seeing the opinion article, I started researching the Suffolk County towing policy and Brookhaven's towing policy to see how they address this topic. I brought the topic as a whole to the Code Revision Committee. And what came of that after a few different drafts is adding Part 5 to Chapter 289. It's based mostly on Suffolk County's towing policy, but it's tailored to meet the needs of the town of Riverhead and also the feedback that I received from the Code Revision Committee. So essentially what it is a plan. So like I said, it's really shopping centers that are privately owned and they have publicly accessed parking lots. The owner of the shopping center, let's say, if they want to tow a car without the owner's consent, they have to follow the notification requirements in 289-68, which would include conspicuous signage. So it would have to be at least 4 feet high, have certain lettering so that it can be clear to the people who are parking there. The signage must contain a list of reasons why a towing may occur. The applicable hours that the towing could occur, the name and the number of the tow company that's been contracted by the shopping center, and the property owner's name. So going through that, the property owners are to enter into contracts with towing companies, which they already do. But when this is done, the owners need to give a letter to the tow company which details their agreement, the costs that they're going to be charging, the location that they're surveying, and this code will require a copy of that letter given by the shopping center owner to the tow company to also be filed with the town clerk and PD so that we're aware and PD's aware of what agreement and what tow company is canvassing what parking lots. To that same end, the tow companies themselves must, in order for them to operate in these situations, they have to have a contract with the property owner, and they can only tow if the owner of the property is present or the owner's representative is present and requests the tow. The tow company itself, it will be given a seizure tow authorization by the property owner, which will give the date and time of the tow, the location of the tow, the reason for the tow, the cost, and where the car owner could find their vehicle. So the owner will give that to the tow company. The tow company will have that signed authorization from the owner. They'll tow the vehicle, and then after the tow is complete, they'll take that tow authorization that's signed by the owner and they'll deliver it immediately to PD. So now PD is again aware that a vehicle was just towed and the details of when, where, the description of the vehicle, and where the person can locate the vehicle, so that if a shopper or whatever, what have you, is coming out and their car's not there and they call PD, PD can now say, yeah, we just received the tow affidavit from Rapid Recovery or whatever. This is where your car is. If the individual doesn't already see the signage that's going to be required to be posted. So getting to the fees. The fees are going to be capped at $375, which is the municipal tow fee that we currently have. And the only additional fee that we're going to allow is a maximum of $20 a day for the storage of the vehicle. And there is clear language in here as well that the owner cannot profit from the tows, the penalties for violation of this by either the property owners or the tow companies ranges from $500 to $1,500. And this code would not apply to vehicles that were deemed abandoned, which are dealt with by highway being towed in that instance.
What happens is we have shopping centers in town, and let's say, I know one area where it has happened is where the jitney bus picked people up on Route 58 in front of the TJ Maxx shopping center. people will leave their car there and maybe go into the city for the weekend and then come back and the jitney drops them off right there. They get in their car and drive away. So this was part of it. Part of it is people leaving their cars parked for sale in parking stalls and leaving them there 24 hours a day until the vehicle sells. And we also, back when I was still working with the police department, we had a parking lot across the street from Diggers that was posted parking for Store X only. And the Store X they went into contract with a tow company, and the tow guy would sit around the corner and watch as soon as his car pulled in and parked and got out and didn't go into Store X, maybe went into Store Z, he went over, hooked the car and towed it away. And this poor guy, poor people were coming out 5 minutes later and their car is gone, and they're like, what happened? Somebody stole it. And it was almost like a scam to me. I mean, we had to deal with the people coming into the police department, and they were so angry that this happened. So this kind of allows that not to happen and gives some teeth to the town to be able to guide and monitor the tow companies that try to do stuff like that.
That's exactly right.
I completely favor this. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate it. I think it was well done.
Thank you.
And it caps off the fines overall to keep them in a fair zone.
It does. The fine is the same as what the police department charges for an impound, so.
Great. Thank you both. Really good.
Thank you. So I have the permission to publish and post?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, board, does anybody have anything else that maybe, I know it's not on the agenda, we shouldn't talk about it, but if there's something that came out of today that you still want to discuss, we certainly can. If we're all
I
good.
would just like to say that I love that you moved the meeting down here for the work session.
We are,
It was
you're
so
going to
much
be
more
more
productive.
engaged.
Sorry.
Anybody, you're going to be more engaged with anybody that sits here when you're sitting here than sitting up there. And it's even better too when you get developers coming in with maps and they're setting, we can see it, we're right there. So thank you, I appreciate that. It's the way it was always done before.
I remember when
I
it
didn't
was like
invent
that.
this. It was something that was done and they got away from it and I wanted to bring it back, so.
Great job.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you listening in. If you're on Channel 22, if you're in the audience, thank you for coming down. And that's the end of our work session agenda today. And do I need to make a motion?
Motion.
Yes? Okay. Motion to end today's work session
I second.
and second it. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.